Okay, we're back to more AccuDraw. This is part 2 of the 2-part series for AccuDraw. And hopefully you've watched the prior video. If you haven't, it'd be good to go back and watch that video because this video will refer to some of the things we learned there. So we're going to be talking about some 2-letter shortcuts, and these have to do with rotating the compass. So the first one we're going to talk about is RV, and this one allows us to rotate the view to match the AccuDraw compass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the compass to show up on the screen, and I'm going to do a control tentative. Now the compass appears. Right now the compass is currently oriented to the views X and Y, and as we learned in the prior video, the north arrow here indicates the design file's true north. So what we want to do is rotate the compass, in this case to match the right-of-way down here. So we're going to do an RE. We're going to data on the right-of-way line, and when we do that, we're going to notice that the compass rotates. Now what I'd like to do is rotate my view so that the red X is the view's positive X. So I'm going to type in RV, and this will rotate my view to line up with the AccuDraw compass. This can be extremely handy to rotate your view when you have the compass oriented the way you want the view to be oriented. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and view previous. I'm just going to hold down the Shift key and right click, and then there's view previous. This takes us back to the view orientation here. So the next shortcut we're going to talk about here is a way for me to store the rotation of the compass in what's called an ACS, an auxiliary coordinate system. If you're an AutoCAD user transferring over, AutoCAD had something called a UCS. They're similar in nature. Now what I need to do is get my compass oriented the way I want to have it for my ACS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pan up. I'm going to zoom in a bit here, and here's my alignment. So what I'm going to do is do a control tentative on my alignment here, and you can see the compass appears. Now the compass is still oriented to the views X and Y. We want to rotate the compass to match the alignment. So I'm going to type in RE. I'm going to data on the alignment. There it is. My compass is rotated. Now what I'd like to do is store that off. So I'm going to type in another 2-letter shortcut, WA. This will bring up the right to ACS. Now I've already done this before, so you can see there's ramp already listed there. So I'm going to say this is ramp 2, and I'm going to click OK. This is now stored off as a ACS. To see this, I'm going to come up to my drawing aids, and here we have ACS, and I'm going to open up the ACS dialog, and you're going to see listed there the 2 ACSs that were written. Ramp and ramp 2. Now you can remove these if you want to. So for example, they are the same, but I could remove one by selecting it and clicking the delete, and that removes it. Now I have it down here. Now I can change the name of this to whatever I want it to be, but I'm going to leave it as ramp 2. So I'm going to close this out. Now how can this help you? Let's say for example, I'm going to hit reset. I'm going to go back to my home, and I'm going to go to my place smart line. Now, if I was drawing in a line, let's say this happens to be utility. Now, my compass remembers the ACS, so I'm going to change it back to view, hit V, so we can pretend as if I'm starting a new line. Now, what I'd like to do is rotate my compass so that it lines up with that alignment. Now, right now, I could just type in RE, and I could data on the alignment because it's right there on my screen. But if I couldn't see the element, RE wouldn't be helpful. So I'm going to get that ACS, and there's a 2-letter shortcut, GA. So I'm going to type in GA. Get ACS comes up, and you can see there's my name. Now I only have one. I removed the other one. There's ramp 2. There's 2 things you can get. You can get the origin of the ACS and or the rotation of the ACS. You typically don't want to get the origin. The origin would have been where the compass was when I defined the ACS, and that happened to have been down here. If I did check origin, it would move my compass there. So we're only interested in this time getting the rotation. So when I click OK, watch what happens to my compass. It rotates to that rotation. So at any time, any place in my drawing, I can easily rotate my compass to a known orientation or rotation. You can create as many ACSs as you want to, and they get stored with the file. So anybody else opens the file up, they would be able to see them and recover them also. So we're going to hit reset. So we're going to continue looking at some of the shortcuts, the keyboard shortcuts, and we're going to see how we can use them in more of a practical way in doing drawing. So we're going to open up another file, the second file in our folder. So we're going to go to File, Open. We're going to open a file. It's called Smart Lock in Nearest Snap. Double clicking. Now in this situation, we've got a construction detail. If I look at this area right here, if I zoom in on this, what you're going to notice is this vertical line, which should end at the intersection of the arc. It doesn't, and this is not that uncommon a practice. If I zoomed out far enough, nobody would probably notice that. But that meant somebody had to draw this line and they had to data in a random spot when they got close, and that's just not good CAD practices. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit. I'm going to show you how I would draw those, and we're going to be looking at 3 new shortcuts, and these are shortcuts that allow us to invoke snaps. I'm going to open up my keyboard shortcuts dialog. Again, I'm going to go to my search ribbon. I'm going to type in short, and you'll see it appears there. I'm going to hit enter, and this opens up my keyboard shortcuts. 3 snaps that can be invoked are center snap, intersection snap, and nearest snap. The one we're going to be demonstrating is nearest snap. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. I wanted you to see those. And I'm going to undock my snaps on the right side and move them over here so that you can see when I use these snaps how it sets them as the active snap. So I'm going to go to my Place Smart Line tool. I'm going to start my line right here. I'm going to do a data at the end of that line. And I'm going to use the Smart Lock, which is enter. So I'm going to hit enter. I'm now locked on that axis, and now I'm going to activate the nearest snap by, on my keyboard, pressing the letter N. Watch what happens on the snap mode toolbar. It activates that snap. Now it's not the default snap, it's just the active snap. Now I can quickly move my cursor down, easily doing a data on the arc, and then a reset. This makes it very easy for me to be very accurate in what I'm doing. So I could continue doing this. I could start my line. I can enter to lock it, N for nearest, data, reset. Start again, start my line, enter to lock it, N for nearest, data, and there I have lines that are precise. Those vertical lines end at the arc point. Now there's another snap, it's called the center snap, and this is a snap that we can use to locate the center of a radial element or any element, matter of fact. So we're going to be drawing a line, and we're going to be starting at the quarter marks of this arc. So we're going to start a line right here. I'm still in Smart Line. I'm going to do a data. What you're going to notice is the AccuDraw compass appears, and the compass is currently oriented to the views X and Y. I want to rotate the compass so that its x-axis intersects the center of the arc. So I'm going to do an RQ, rotate quick. This allows me to freely choose any point to rotate the compass. I want to intersect the center of the arc, so I need to go to center snap. So on my keyboard, I'll hit C. You'll notice on the snap mode toolbar, it goes to center snap. I move my cursor over the arc. I do a data, and now my compass is rotated to be perpendicular from that point on the arc. I can move it up. I can hit enter again, mixing all these shortcuts together. N for nearest, pick this point along that horizontal line, data, reset. Repeat the process here, start my line, R, Q, and then C for center. Pick that point, move it up towards the horizontal line, hit enter, N, data, reset. So that's a quick way for me to get to those very commonly used snaps. So the next thing we're going to do is take a look at 3D. So we're going to go to File, Open again. We're going to be opening up a 3D file. And we're going to take our snaps and we're going to dock it back over on the right side. Now what you see is a 3D file. And you see in view number 1, this is wireframe display style, and on the right it's a shaded display style. And if I rotate the view around, and a quick shortcut to do that is holding down the Shift key and then pressing left and right buttons simultaneously. Holding the Shift key down, holding the left and right button allows me to dynamically rotate the view around. So you can see this is truly a 3D file. Now what we're going to talk about is how does AccuDraw behave in a 3D file. So I'm going to go, just as an example, to the Place Smart Line tool, And let's say I started a line right here on the corner here of this solid. You're going to notice the compass appears. Now, right now, the compass is flat to my view, and I'm in a user-defined rotated view. The compass is now flat. That's V for view. If I wanted to rotate the compass to be to the top orientation, as we learned in 2D, if I hit T for top, and I'm going to do that now, that rotates the compass to the design file's top orientation. So positive Y is represented by the green tick mark. The red X is the positive X. Now, if I wanted to rotate the compass to the side orientation, I'd hit the letter S, S for side. If I wanted to go to front, F, F for front. So TSF, top, side, front. Those are absolute known planes within a 3D file. Now the section here, this sloped area, that's not top, side, or front. That's a unique orientation. I want to place a cylinder in the center perpendicular to the slope. So I'm going to hit reset. I'm going to leave the workflow of drawing and I'm going to go to modeling because we're going to be doing 3D. Now under the solids tab, I'm going to go down to cylinder. And now what I need to do is first get my compass rotated to be planar to the slope. So I'm going to move my cursor here. I'm going to do a control tentative. You're again going to see the compass appear, and right now it's in the front orientation. I want to rotate it to be planar to the slope. We've seen this shortcut before in 2D. It's the RE shortcut. In 3D, it allows us to select a surface of an object and it will rotate the compass to that plane. So I'm going to again type in RE. I'm going to move my cursor to the edge and you notice the compass rotates to match the slope. If I go to the front, you see it rotates the compass to match the front. If I go to the side, you can see it rotates the compass that way. And if I go up to top, just moving it over that surface will rotate the compass. Again, we want to go to the slope. So I'm going to move my cursor someplace onto the slope. I'm visually seeing my compass rotate also. Now I'm still in Rotate AccuDraw by Element. I have not started my cylinder yet. I need to accept the rotation of the compass. I do that by doing a data, and I'm back to placing my cylinder. Now, I've already located the halfway point there. I move my cursor over. I hit enter, locking it on that plane. I can slide on up here to the midpoint of that line. I can then data, and I'm now starting my cylinder perpendicular in the center of that slope. I'm going to go up about 3. That'll be my radius there. I do a data, and then I can move it out, and I'm going perpendicular. We'll make that 9. I'll do a data, and you can see in the shaded view what it looks like. And if I rotate this view around, you can see it's perfectly perpendicular to that sloped area. So that's working in a 3D file with AccuDraw. It's extremely helpful, helps you to orientate yourself at any point. You can hit T for top, and you know where you are. So the next thing we're going to look at is the AccuDraw settings dialog. So we're going to go to File Open. We're going to open up the next file in sequence. And the AccuDraw settings dialog, it could be opened by the keyboard shortcut GS for Get Settings, or we can go to Drawing Aids. We can come over to the AccuDraw group and we can click here for AccuDraw settings. Now there's 3 tabs across the top: Operation, Display, and Coordinates. We're going to touch on just a few items on each one of those tabs. The first one is Operation. Now Autoload, what this means, we recommend you leave that on. That means if you do turn off AccuDraw by either a shortcut or close the dialog, it will automatically reload it every time you open a file. So that's a good thing to have on. Now the next one is Context Sensitivity. This is a good thing to leave on. Let me demonstrate why. So I'm going to go back to Home, and I'm going to go to Place Smart Line. I'm going to start a line, and we have Context Sensitivity is turned on. I want you to note that when I do a data and then a second data, you'll note that the compass rotates. That is context sensitivity. Let me go ahead and reset, and I'm going to do an undo. I'm going to turn off context sensitivity. We'll do that again. Data, move my cursor up, a second data, and you'll notice that the compass does not rotate. Now that's just one example of the many things that context sensitivity gets us with AccuDraw. So let me demonstrate some of the other things. So I'm going to hit reset and do an undo. I'm going to turn context sensitivity back on. I'm going to go to my Modify Element tool. With context sensitivity turned on, if I pick this end of the line, you'll note that the compass goes to one end of the line and it rotates to match the angle. So it makes it very easy for me to change the length of that line without changing its angle. So I'm going to hit reset. Let's see what happens when we turn off context sensitivity and I come back and I do a data. You'll note that the compass did not rotate to match the angle of the line. Again, that's another example. So let's go ahead and undock our AccuDraw window because I want to show you another one. We're going to turn context sensitivity back on again. We're going to go to our Place Arc tool. Now currently I'm in the X and Y rectangular coordinate system. I'm going to start my arc and you see I'm X and Y, the compass is a square. Now when context sensitivity is turned on, as soon as I do the second data and I go to define the sweep angle of my arc, it automatically switches to polar mode. Again, that's the intuitiveness of AccuDraw. Now, when I finish my arc, you'll see it switches back to X and Y. Now, if context sensitivity was not checked, that would not have happened. It would have remained in our case, rectangular. Now, the next tab here is for our display, and this is where we can change the color of the x-axis and the y-axis if we want to. We can also change the dialog size. Right now the dialog is set to medium, so let's go ahead and see what the options are. We've got small. When I choose small, you can see it shortens it a bit. If I choose large, you can see that makes it large. So we're going to set it back to medium here. Now the shortcut keyins, if I click on that, this will open up the keyboard shortcuts. It's another way to get to those keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to close that. We're going to do a couple of undos. The next thing we're going to look at, the tab for coordinates. Now, the unit round off and the indexing are what we're going to look at here. So the unit round off, we have distance and we have angle. And I'm going to go to my Place Smart Line tool. We're going to look at what distance round off gets us. So I'm going to set this value to, let's say, 55. And I'm going to hit enter and that will check the box. Now, if I go to draw a line, as I move my cursor out, you're going to see it jumps to 55 increments. So you can see it's at 110. If I do a data and I move my cursor up, you can see it goes to 55. And if I go again half the distance, it'll jump to 110. I can at any point type in whatever value I want to. I can override the incrementing there, the unit round off, or I can just take it by doing a data, and that's what I did. So I'm going to hit reset, and we're going to do an undo. I'm going to uncheck that, and when I do that, you'll notice the value remains there. It's unchecked, it's not using it, but it's still there. So if I wanted to repeat that, I could easily do it. We're going to go to angle. So I'm going to set this to 30, and we're going to click on the AccuDraw window. We're going to change from rectangular to polar, hitting M. We're going to start a line. And as I move my cursor out, I have my angle unit round off to 30. So as I move my cursor up, it's just going to jump to every 30 degrees. Now, again, I can type in any angle I want to and override that. But if I wanted to keep it at 30 degrees, and again, you could set it at whatever angle you wanted it to be. So I'm going to hit reset. We're going to turn that off. And the last thing we'll look at down there is indexing. Now, this is something I said in the first video that we could go ahead and turn off if we wanted to demonstrate what it is, what axis indexing is. If I do a data, we're going to switch back to rectangular. If I move my cursor away from the axis, it's free. But as I get close, it will jump to the axis. It'll index, as we called it indexing before. Now, there's a tolerance, and this is in pixels. Right now it's 10 pixels, so that means when I get my cursor within 10 pixels of the axis, it'll jump to it. Generally, you don't want to set that to be anything higher than 10. Lower would probably be better. Now, if I turn off the axis and I come back, you can see as I move my cursor along the axis, doesn't matter which one, X or Y. Now I'm going to hit reset. We're going to turn that back on, and we're going to see what the distancing does. So now I'm going to leave distance on for the moment. So I'm going to start a line. I'm going to move it out, and we're going to type in 76.3. And I'm going to do a data. Now, as I move my cursor up, and I'm indexed, and I move it straight up like this, when I get to a certain point, you're going to notice a perpendicular tick mark. That's distance indexing. Now, if you don't want that, you can just turn this off. And if I move my cursor back up, you can see it's no longer snapping or indexing to that previous distance. Again, this is something usually you want to leave on. You can type in any number you want to, but if you wanted to repeat the last value, that does make it handy for you to do that. So those are the basics of our AccuDraw settings dialog. So we're going to go ahead and take our AccuDraw window and we're going to dock it back down here. We're going to close our AccuDraw settings dialog and we're going to go to our last file, which is going to be AccuDraw on the Popup Calculator. I'm going to go ahead and go to File Open, and the last file will open up here. And we're going to talk about AccuDraw and the Popup Calculator. AccuDraw has built into it a Popup Calculator. I'm going to go ahead and undock the AccuDraw window again so that it is clear and visible for us. Now the Popup Calculator is built into AccuDraw so it can be available to at any point. What we're going to do now is we're going to see how we can use it to do some of the basic operators. It does your basic math operators, add, subtract, multiply, divide. It's also capable of doing your trig functions, sine, cosine, tangent. You can put parentheses around to group your operations. So it is a full-featured calculator. You even have the ability to put in your own variables if you wanted to. PI or pi is already defined for you. Let's say we want to use a basic divide operation. So we need to put a center line right in the middle between these two. That center line needs to look like this. So we already matched the attributes, all data. Now we need to figure out where the halfway point is between these two. So I'm going to go to Place Smart Line. I'm going to get the compass to appear by doing Control Tentative. Again, the compass appears. Now I'm going to move my cursor over to this point here, and you'll notice the yellow X, which is AccuSnap. Something about the basic operators. If you wanted to divide or multiply, the AccuSnap, the yellow X, is perfectly okay for capturing a distance. And what I mean by that is in my X field, the value between the compass and where the yellow X is captured there. It's 143.129. What I want to do is divide that. Now, again, if I'm doing multiply or divide, the yellow X is fine. But you're going to see in a minute, if I do an add or subtract, I need to do a tentative. That's clicking the wheel. Tentative will work in either situation. If I know that multiply and divide don't require it, it's just a shortcut. So right now, with that distance defined, to get to the divide, on my keyboard, I'm going to hit the /. And what you're going to see on the AccuDraw window is the Popup Calculator. It appears there on the screen. In the divide mode, it captured the value 143.129. And what do I want to do? Divide that by 2. So I type in on my keyboard 2. You're going to see two things appear on the screen. Number one, you're going to see the results of the calculation. It's 71.565. Graphically, on the screen, you're going to see a dot where that point is. So you can numerically confirm if that's correct, and you can visually confirm if that's correct. Now at this point, I don't want to start the line at that point. If I did, I would do a data. But what I want to do is, now that I've located the halfway point, I'm going to move my cursor up. You'll see a dotted line there. I'm still at that midway point. I'm going to start my line up here. It's a center line, so I'm just going to do a data. And now I've started my line and my compass is exactly rotated to the midpoint between those two shapes. So I'm going to move my cursor down. I can do a data and then a reset. Now, if I could have put in a distance if I wanted to, but it's just a center line. So that's using the divide. Now we're going to see how we can use the add or addition. So I'm going to go to my copy element tool, and my task is to select this green circle and copy the circle, but place the copy relative to this corner here, straight down, relative to this perpendicular point, an additional 75 feet. So we're going to select the circle to copy. We're again going to use Control Tentative to relocate the compass. So the compass is there. I'm going to move my cursor down. I want to lock it on the axis. So I hit Enter. I'm locked on that vertical axis. Now here, the yellow X, if I hit plus, it would not work. I need to do a tentative for add or subtract. So on my mouse, I hit the wheel, click the wheel, and I see the tentative. That's the big plus sign. Now on my AccuDraw window, watch what happens when I hit the plus sign. Popup Calculator appears. And again, I'm not worried about the numbers being negative in value. I'm going to type in 75. you can see, again, two things happen. On the Popup Calculator, I see the results of that. The 31.850 plus 75 comes out to 106.85. And then visually, graphically on the screen, I see where that's going to be placed. All I need to do to accept that is a data and then a reset. So that's some basics about AccuDraw and the Popup Calculator. So that wraps up our AccuDraw conversations. See you in the next video.